Hi, I'm Courtney. I am an Ironman triathlete and I also have qualified for Olympic distance nationals in triathlon twice. Now today I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on the least amount of training you need to do in order to finish your first sprint triathlon. A sprint triathlon is usually what most beginners start with, and I highly recommend starting with this distance, which is the shortest triathlon distance. It's a great way to get your feet wet. Now, if I were to go back to training and I were looking to create a training plan in order to just finish and have fun during my first sprint triathlon, this is what my training would look like. Okay, let's start with running. I tend to do more running than swimming and biking, which personally has served me really well because running is my strength, and thankfully it is the last part of the triathlon. But if you are a swimmer or a biker, I think it's totally fine for your first sprint triathlon to train in the discipline that you like the best. As you become a seasoned triathlete, they will tell you to train the discipline that you like the least so you can improve. But just to get started, this is about having fun and finishing. So go ahead and default to whatever you're most comfortable with. And for me, that's the run. So let's talk specifics. What kind of training was I doing for the run leading up to my first sprint distance triathlon? Well, being a runner, I was training 3 times a week in running. I was running between 2 and 4 miles every single run. Now, you don't want to run every day. I wouldn't recommend running more than 4 days a week if you are a runner, just because you don't want to overdo it and you want to make sure that your muscles are fresh for swimming and biking training as well. One of the things I made a mistake in was I wasn't familiar with low heart rate training when I started in triathlon. So if I had to do things differently, I wouldn't have been running at my race pace for all my training runs. I would have used the Maffetone method in order to calculate my zone 2 heart rate, and I would have run all 3 of my runs in my low heart rate zone. If you're already in great running shape, I wouldn't recommend doing all your runs in zone 2. If you are in great running shape, go ahead and do 80% of your runs in zone 2 and then 20% in high intensity and sprint or speed work. That is going to ensure that you have a nice, strong, fast finish in your race. Now let's talk about the swim. Personally, when I did my first sprint triathlon, I was not a strong swimmer, and I'm still not a strong swimmer. So I could not actually swim 2 laps in a row when I first started training. So let me take you through what I did in order to build up to being able to complete the swim in a sprint triathlon. So for my first swim, I just wanted to get comfortable in the pool. As I said, I really could not swim more than 2 laps. So the first swim was just about getting comfortable, getting back into freestyle, which I really hadn't done since I was a child, and learning to breathe again. On my second swim, the goal was to complete 250 meters total. Now, if you're a strong swimmer, these are really little numbers, but for me and for anybody who is a little bit intimidated by the swim, I really recommend just starting small and really working yourself up to the longer distances. So 250 meters, I didn't swim it all at once. I just did it in 25 meters or 50 meters at a time. I didn't swim it fast. I just focused on doing those laps and taking a break. For my third swim, the goal was to complete 500 meters total. Now I broke that up into 100 meters at a time. So by the third swim, I could do 4 continuous laps and then I would take a 1 to 2 minute break. One of the things that I also recommend is adding breaststroke. So personally for me, if I feel like I'm getting out of breath from doing freestyle, I always do a lap of breaststroke. And I actually do this in triathlons, and I even did it in my Ironman triathlon as well. So I find the swim is just about what works for you. And in my mind, I give myself a reward. So I'm gonna do 3 laps of freestyle, and then I feel a little bit out of breath. And so the reward is I get 1 lap of breaststroke. And this allowed me to complete the 500-meter swim for my third swim. My fourth swim, we increased to 750 meters, and this was broken up into 3 250-meter swims. By now, believe it or not, I was able to do these 250-meter swims quite comfortably, albeit very slowly, but I was comfortable in the water. I found a rhythm with my breathing, and I was able to knock those out with some decent confidence. Okay, now, I basically started training for my sprint triathlon in January and then did that first race in April. So I had almost 4 months of training under my belt. After I completed my first 4 swims, I then averaged 1 to 2 times per week of 500 to 1,000-meter swims leading up to my sprint distance triathlon. And I can confidently say I was absolutely ready for that distance when I got there. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have added an open water swim. So all my swims were done in the pool, which is a pretty controlled environment. You can see very well, and there's really nothing that compares to an open water swim. So if you do get an opportunity to do an open water swim before your first triathlon, I highly recommend it. If your triathlon is a pool triathlon, don't worry about it. Focus on the pool and you'll be good to go. Okay, on to the bike. Now, I have never been a cyclist, so I had a lot to learn here. I had never really cycled outside. I had only done spin class. So if you feel like you've never cycled before, it's okay. You can still do a sprint triathlon, trust me. I started with 1 to 2 spin classes per week, and those are on average 1 hour. One was a high intensity and another was an endurance ride. And those really served me well when it came time for the triathlon, because the high intensity allowed me to really push myself and feel a bit uncomfortable. But the endurance rides, which are about an hour, give you that endurance and give you that cardio training that really benefits you in triathlon. Now, if you have access to a gym and you're not a spin class person, that's okay. At least once a week, I just found a stationary bike at the gym, hopped on, popped in some tunes, and cranked on that thing for about 45 minutes. It's easy, there's nothing intimidating about it. You don't have an instructor telling you to get out of your saddle and jump up and down. And so if you are a solo, pop in your headphones kind of person, you could totally do a couple 45 to an hour bike rides by yourself in the gym and you'll be just fine. Now, outside riding. I do recommend doing this before your triathlon. You can definitely supplement your training with gyms and stationary rides and inside riding, but there really is nothing like actually being outside on your bike. And just for safety reasons and to make sure that you're comfortable, it's really important to get outside for some rides on the road. Now, you don't need a special triathlon bike. You can just take your bike and head out the door. The training that I did was anywhere from 10 to 20 miles, 1 to 2 times per week leading up to the sprint triathlon. And I think that this distance is perfectly fine. You don't need to do 50-mile bike rides and 30-mile bike rides. If you're already a cyclist and you're doing those, fantastic. You can skip ahead. You're good to go. But if you are somebody that hasn't cycled outside much, just start small. That's the key to the success in all of triathlon. If you're a beginner, just build the habit. Start with small swims, small runs, small bikes. And then as you get more comfortable, I think you will find that you really enjoy it and your body will naturally tell you, hey, I've got the energy to keep going. And once you're there, you're ready for the next level of triathlon, which is the Olympic distance. I hope that this inspired you to know that you do not have to train 10 or 15 hours a week to finish your first sprint distance triathlon and have fun. At the end of the day, you really just need to get comfortable with running, biking, and swimming. I think sometimes triathlon can be intimidating to beginners, but once you just do little bits at a time, you will find that it all starts to come naturally. You get in a rhythm. And of course, the most important part is you really have fun. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips were helpful. I hope this has inspired you to go ahead and sign up for that sprint distance triathlon that maybe you've been putting off. And I wish you the best of luck. You can do it, have fun, and I'm cheering you on. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and rock on.